Welcome to the Belly to Belly podcast, where we explore in person business to business marketing. This episode is brought to you by Meet, the company that helps international companies exhibit at US trade shows. Check them out at meetroi.com.
So let's maybe shift gears, and this has been such great information. And I think the one thing we see a lot of today is probably people not putting the right message out, and maybe having poor etiquette on LinkedIn. People behaving badly, I would say.
There's a bit of that going on.
Yeah. And so it'd be great to talk a little bit about sort of the sort of things that you see that probably challenge successful relationship building on LinkedIn, and then we can talk about sort of what you see as the best practices. But let's talk about what do you see as sort of the big challenges for people who are endeavoring to create good relationships on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's standing out. There's so much noise happening on the platform compared to before. You just have to show like but you can stand out. It just takes time and effort. So you need to show that you've looked at their profile. You've got to show interest in them. You've got to find a way you can help them, and then there is value in connecting. The biggest mistake that you see is you just send out 1,000 connection requests in a day,
right.
And then you get 100 people connecting, and then you get slammed with a sales message without it's I know it because I get competitors to us obviously doing this, so I know there's a lot of it going on, because if they'd done proper profiling they would realize I was the wrong person to sell to. And then a chaser, and have you seen it as a chaser, and they're not giving anything new, they're not adding any value, they're just chasing, and it's a bit of a shame really, because it means that people get turned off from the platform. But because some people are doing it badly, it means that when you do it well, you do stand out. So
yeah, the most frequent messages I get are either for lead generation or they're for website or SEO type work, some type of development work. And yeah, it's amazing the volume of those messages that are coming through. And and maybe help me here, I almost analogize it like going to a country where you don't speak the language and being in a restaurant and ordering a meal, and you're sort of communicating to the waiter or waitress, and of course if they don't speak English, being an ignorant American, my one language, and my only sort of, and I immediately show my ignorance because the only way I can get them to understand me is to speak louder, that seems to be the way a lot of marketing goes today. Is if somebody doesn't understand you or they don't react, then you speak louder and you hit them more often, and it seems like
it's all about personalization, and actually you can still do things at volume. You can still use tools as long as you do it in a really nice way and you've taken the time, right? So what's a lot of things that we're experimenting with is finding a variable that is really personal to them. So we know what their last post was, we know how many likes they got on that post, we know how long ago that was, and so if it was ages ago, then it's like, hey, I was looking at this post, noticed it was 3 months ago, would you like any help with being more active? Or I saw this post, you got loads of engagement, that's fantastic, I'm curious, how many views did you get? Because we know we might be able to help increase the views. You could, if you're selling into big enterprises, that's often in the news, you could be saying hey, I was going to get in touch and I just read this article today, and I thought it might be worth us speaking about X, Y, Z. So it means you're using all the tools and technology, but you're still spending the time up front to find out what is that personalization that you should put in, and you can get more creative than just sticking somebody's name in. Actually, it takes a bit more time, but you get a better conversion rate, more responses and more replies from it, then it's completely worth it. And I think that what's going on with those kind of messages that you're getting is they're annoying people, but they don't care
Right.
because there's always more people to contact. And you just have to be really, really careful to not do that if you've got a limited audience base.
Right. So if I were going to summarize the best practices from what you've talked about in terms of communication, number one is be real specific in terms of who you're trying to connect
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, it sounds like, is personalize the message
Yeah.
to something that's important for them
And
or
test.
relevant to them and
Yeah.
test. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are there additional things that we want to make sure that people know about in terms of, best practices in terms of communication?
Yeah. Track everything. So if you've already asked them to follow your company page and you don't track that you've asked them,
Yeah.
and you ask them again, that's a bit annoying,
Right.
you know. And just to make sure that you, if you're doing anything which is at volume, you know, like if you're sending 100 messages, just test everything, because I mean, we have gone from really poor results to fantastic results just from the perseverance of test this against this, this against this, and it's incremental changes that we know makes a difference.
Yeah. No, that's sort of test, measure, iterate, test, measure, iterate. Yeah. Keep it. And yeah, no, just that makes so much sense. And I would imagine, thinking about the types of companies that can really benefit by leveraging LinkedIn, as you said off the top, really looking at where your sale is strategic, where it's conceptual, where it's relationship oriented, and where it's a sort of a multi-stepped and maybe multi-influenced process is probably the idea. It sounds like the ideal scenario for leveraging LinkedIn, and also, as you said off the top, was the idea of market entry. You can really have a strategy that helps you sort of warm the market, and it maybe even give you some early wins, so that you're sort of entering a lot further advanced than you would be otherwise.
Yeah, and if you've got a sort of limited number of companies you've gone out to, you don't have to do mass marketing, mass advertising to the whole of the industry. Because if you're engaging with multiple stakeholders in a smaller number of companies, you're kind of becoming famous within those companies. Add in a little bit of LinkedIn advertising or some Facebook advertising onto that, and you just, if it's super targeted to the same companies, you're just... You seem a lot bigger than you are. So I would just say it's absolutely ideal for super targeted, just really penetrate into those companies that can basically bring you into the country. It's, you end up closing that dream client that actually, will make it a success.
Well, I know we need to finish up, and it seems like there are so many more opportunities. I think, other things that maybe would be great in a future conversation, talking about using LinkedIn for competitive intelligence or developing strategic partners. It seems like there are many more ways that this tool and platform can be leveraged. And would you come back at some point and maybe help us talk through those issues?
I'd be delighted. Thank you for asking, Bill.
Absolutely. So my sense is there'll be people interested in connecting with you and asking more questions, and maybe even learning more about Pitch One-to-One. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Send me a connection message.
Yeah, there you go. Connect with you on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Say I saw you on Bill's podcast. I heard you on Bill's podcast. And,
exactly.
Let's connect, and then we can take it from there.
That sounds brilliant. Well, Laura, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for taking time. This is just for those that are listening. We're recording this on Valentine's Day. I'm keeping Laura from her date this late afternoon. So certainly appreciate it. Thank your husband for allowing you to spend time with us today.
Will do, Bill. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or we can be of any service. Like us if you'd like to stay in the know on current episodes.